really kind of going into that further, I know you gave your number. We're not going to do that here. But what would you say is the biggest contributing factor for you crossing the six-figure 100K mark whenever that happened?
My name is Alan Campbell. I'm 36 years old, and I'm an executive board member for Black in HR, focusing on marketing.
Alan, man, how you doing?
Doing good.
Glad to hear that. This conversation, I think, is years in the making, right? We've known each other going on 20 years, pledged same chapter, Kappa Alpha Psi. The first time we've actually had a chance to sit down and really kind of talk through this, right? So walk us through a little bit about your background, where you're from, what you do, and share with us some information that we don't know.
Yeah, thanks for having me first and foremost. For everyone, my name is Alan Campbell. I'm 36 years old. I'm an executive board member for the Black in HR, focusing on marketing. A little bit about myself. I'm from Dixie, Georgia. I went to the mighty Thomas County Central High School. From there, I have 6 degrees, includes a master's degree, and my latest degree is from Berkeley Cal. Go Bears. So I spent most of my adult life working for 2 companies primarily. AT&T, I spent 10 years focusing on multi-million-dollar retail stores, managing those stores. And then I transitioned to Cox Enterprise, where I've been there since 2015. And I'm focusing on building out the EV front for Cox Automotive, specifically for Manheim division. Talk a little bit about my passion. I started a nonprofit about 12 years ago with my family to commemorate my late father, Wallace Campbell, and to celebrate my mother, Carolyn Campbell. We provide scholarships to minority students across the state of Georgia who are pursuing higher academia. Been a success. We're looking forward to the next path with that, which is building a pipeline from college to corporate America. And we really want to set up students for success. So really excited about what we're going to do and what we're doing with those students.
Incredible. I know that you've collaborated with Knowledge, your nonprofit, Black in HR, have done some things together.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty obvious relationship synergy because, your students are at some point entering the workforce, and Black in HR has 10,000, HR professionals that are ready to help them find their way. So I think that this is a natural fit, and I look forward to seeing how that relationship grows. Let's talk about your board work with Black in HR. I know you and I talked about you joining the team as one of our advisory board members. Although you're not in HR, how does it work? How do you feel about connecting with HR leaders in your capacity as a board member, but also as you interact with members across the country?
Well, it's been an exciting road. Just learning how HR works has been very educational, but I learned very quickly that you don't have to be in HR to add value to this setting, which is really unique about Black in HR. You don't have to have that HR background. So I found myself really kind of at the crossroads of just educating HR professionals and people like myself who are just in corporate America and are excelling in their career on how to navigate different spaces, whether that be how do you navigate success in your career or how to navigate just boardroom talks and have that presence and so that you can excel and climb that ladder at a faster rate. I think that it's important to have reference points when, especially if you're a young African American, we don't always have the correct reference points to make sure that we are projecting in our career and where we want to go and making that visible to our executive leadership team. So it's been an exciting road, and I'm looking forward to putting more of those pieces into the puzzle so that we can have a beautiful mosaic once we get Black in HR on the national frame that we're looking to do.
Incredible, man. I think that's a good point. You know, you talk about the bigger picture, right? Like, how do we add value to our community as professionals? But in this conversation, of course, we'll be talking from the lens of Black men. And I think, again, we'll have that discussion. We'll get into the meat of it. But it was great to see that, right? You have the nonprofit that you're focusing on. You're a leader at Cox Media. And, of course, you're an executive with Black in HR. And I think that is a well-rounded resume, just from those things alone. 6 degrees, bro, come on. Like, that is, I mean, look, even in this conversation, this is crushing stereotypes or talking points that Black men have had to endure the last 50 years. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Before I go a little further, with Cox, what exactly do you do?
Yeah, so I'll give a little brief history. I started out really focusing on my background, which was sales and marketing. I quickly climbed that ladder from being an account director to managing vendor management. But currently what I do is I build out auction sites across North America, and I have a specific focus of building out the EV infrastructure for North America and Canada for Manheim Division inside of Cox Automotive. So a lot of strategy involved in that, a lot of intentionality of how we're forming that strategy to make sure that we're building a business case to support EVs in the future.
And as part of that, peripherally, you founded Knowledge, and you already shared that is for helping students, but you also had a collaboration with Microsoft. Yeah. I saw the ad. It was really dope, can't lie. And I think it was really impressive. How did you connect with Microsoft, and then, like, what was that relationship like?
Thank you first and foremost for that, for the compliment. But it was actually, they found me. Someone submitted an application to an upgrade program that Microsoft is doing nationally. And my story was compelling. They reached out to me and said that we received your story from a family member. We love the background. We love what you're doing in the community, and we want to highlight that. And so I didn't think it was real at first, but it took a couple of months of them strategizing and planning, and they flew down to Atlanta. They interviewed my entire family and some of the members and the board members for Knowledge Foundation. And they even helped 15 of my students. They gave me upwards of like $20,000 worth of equipment. And I want to say all of that, most of that equipment went to students that I was helping transition from high school to college. So it was amazing just to hear kind of a major company like Microsoft wants to highlight the work that we're doing in the community and to shine a light on a national YouTube page. And even a campaign was made, and they really built out that storyboard. So it was very humbling, but very exciting, and it's propelled me to want to do more work in the community to shine more light on the students and not ourselves. But amazing opportunity.
I think that is a testament to your commitment, right? Like, just the sacrifice to be running and focusing on 3 major verticals, I think, is commendable, right? And I know that from a work-life balance, that probably is challenging. Yeah. But I think that's what we're built for, right? Black men are built to lead, to win. And I think it's a great time to actually kind of move on to the topic of money, right? Ultimately, this is what it comes down to. It's the only thing that's black and white that can be verified. Everything else is a byproduct of that. Do you remember the conversation we had on Clubhouse? It was titled Black Men Earning 6 Figures?
Yeah.
It was very entertaining. But I thought it was some amazing gems given. You know, Michael, on another show, he talked about how when he participated in it, he learned a lot. But when you hear Black men freely share their salary history and how they got to where they were with each other, and to give strategic guidance to other Black men who are trying to find their way, what is it how does that hit you?
I would say first, it was kind of shocking. I don't know if that's the right thing to say. It was shocking to me that there was such a disparity in wage performance and people just having the confidence to advocate for themselves. I think from my background, being that I started in corporate America at the early age of 18, the experience and the exposure has prepared me to go and advocate for myself in those spaces. But being involved in that conversation and kind of hearing the talk and some of the audience chiming in saying that they're having difficulty, I quickly saw that my experience and exposure is not a common thing for everyone. And so it was an important conversation to have, and I think that we should have it more, not for bragging rights or anything of that nature, but it's more so just exposing people to say, hey, it's okay to advocate for yourself. It's okay to pursue financial equity for yourself and your family, because ultimately that is why we work in these spaces. We want to provide a better lifestyle and a brighter future for our families and ourselves. And so being in that room and hearing just the gems shared amongst myself and others that were on that stage, and hearing the feedback from the audience and in the chat of how this has helped them and given them the confidence is really what it's all about. I think everyone saw that title and they thought that this is just going to be, a contest of who has the most money. But I think the group understood the mission, and we went a totally different direction. It was more so educational based of how to achieve six figures and more than just bragging and boasting. So I think we need to do that more as a culture. I think that we need to do that more as Black men, because once someone starts to raise their hand and speak out, it gives the courage to other people to do the same. And we need more of that in our community.
No, I mean, I 100% agree with you on that. And I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was the incredible dollar figures that were spoken, right? We got on the stage. Yeah. Everyone had to first introduce themselves and say how much they made in their highest earning year. Yeah. And it ranged from $150K to $600,000 a year. Yeah. And it was just incredible to see whatever narrative that Black men have to endure in the media, that stage, that conversation dispelled it, in my opinion, right? And I saw other Black men asking questions in the comments. How do I do this? How can I find a mentor? How can I find a coach? And the great thing about the stage, it had people in finance, it had executives in marketing like yourself, it had leaders in HR, it had talent recruiters, and the amount, business owners, right? And the amount of varied information was great to hear. But I think the biggest thing was we were all on the same page. We were all aligned with providing value in that conversation. So really kind of going into that further, I know you gave your number. We're not going to do that here. But what would you say is the biggest contributing factor for you crossing the six-figure 100K mark whenever that happened?
I think it was first defining what success means to me. So often when I was younger, I was chasing titles, thinking that titles would enable me to get financial, gains and, make me a leader in that organization. But I found myself around the age of 27, 28, where I just felt I was trapped. And I felt trapped because I was looking for validation externally and not internally. And so when I really started to focus in on what success meant to me, is that me being happy at work, or do I have a good work-life balance? What is the ultimate, title or position that I want in this organization? Do I want to be a leader and own a stake in this corporation? And so once I started to define what success looked like for me, my career it rocketed. And the money came because I was more confident in myself. I was able to speak to what I want to do, not only in my professional life, but in my personal life. I think when we join these organizations or corporations, we think that we should only have a professional relationship with these organizations. And you have to understand that leaders, once you climb that executive leadership board, they're invested in your personal life as well. We need to know that you are stable and have a good personal life. And so you'll start to see that clock start to turn more so toward after the 9 to 5 to the 6 to 10. And in that, they need to make sure that you're good at home. And I've seen, a number of organizations just pour into me. We mentioned Microsoft. We mentioned Cox. They're starting to ask about my nonprofit. We're starting to bring students in to bring in internships. And so it's a beautiful thing when you start to define yourself and you'll be able to speak to your vision. But that was one of the major turning points in my career once I was more confident in myself. And also, I think the second turning point was when I realized as a leader, you have to solve problems. I think so many times that when we're in a position at work and we're wondering why we can't get director, why we can't get VP, it's because we think that we get the title and then everyone will just fall in line. No, you have to be a solution-based leader. They're looking for people to solve problems without sometimes even being told. And once I started to have that mindset, I saw myself in more projects that were startups. We're trying to develop this department of the corporation, and we want you to lead it and build the business case. And those are the things that get you notoriety, not raising your hand and say, hey, I want to be a VP one day. Okay, well, what's that look like for you? How do you get there? What are their skill sets? You have to be realistic within yourself to read and grow and build your capabilities to help scale these things. And so I think those 2 points really just made a turning point in my career. And I'm learning every day. Maybe next year I have a 3 and 4 bullet point, but those 2 things I kind of keep to the front forward of my mind to make sure that I'm doing that and exhibiting that and giving that information and knowledge to the next person behind me.
No, I think that what you're saying is spot on. And it sounds like to me, you embrace the burden of performance, right?
Yeah.
You embrace high pressure situations. I think that is an amazing trait that is common in successful men, right? These are some of the terms we hear: aggressive, direct, action-oriented. And depending on the context, they could be taken negatively. Yeah. But I think that those are the very traits that help you get to where you're going. You're competing with people who are just as qualified as you, and they want the same things for your own for their families like you do.
Yeah.
And, it's funny, we did a conversation about this, how to defeat your enemies, right? I think that's a real dialogue that you have to have internally. And not saying that your competition or people that are also in your field are enemies, but there are spaces where you have to be able to win. There's only one chair. There's only one position. And you have to be willing to do what it takes to get that outcome. And actually going into that, one of the things that helps us kind of narrow out our focus and target what our skill sets are and really see how we can apply them is coaching, right? Coaching is a critical tool that, at least in the Black community, has not been highly valued. We're told to go get our masters and MBAs. We're told to go get additional credentials, but there's nothing that can replace working with a coach who is already where you want to be, right? Now, I know that you coach as well, but knowing that Black in HR is a coaching platform as part of what we do, what would you say is really some of the benefits of having a professional coach that you've hired, whose job is to invest time, energy into you? You're not asking for a handout. You're not asking for, come mentor me for free. Saying, I'm going to reach in my pocket and I'm going to invest in myself like I would with a degree, right? What does that say to you? And then what have you gotten out of coaching?
Coaching is so vital. And I think the coaching part of it is more so providing reference points. I spoke to that earlier, and I heard you say, really fighting our enemies. The biggest part of coaching that I think has been identified for me is when I'm able to dispel things like imposter syndrome or, the gray word that you hear passed around about, is executive presence. We hear these words very common in our spaces. And I think having a coach to guide you through what that looks like and how to navigate that is simply more than having a reference point. When we're entering into these spaces, it's not like something that you had growing up where you had a basketball coach, right? And they taught you how to dribble ball, they taught you how to shoot a ball. But when you go into a business, setting up a business and running a business and scaling business, you don't realize the skill sets that you don't have. And oftentimes you don't have someone telling you how to achieve those skill sets. So with Black in HR, it's been a refreshing mindset to just be in a space where, hey, I can give you those tools. How do you navigate stakeholder meetings? How do you navigate, executive presence? How do you show up at work? How do you outline your goals to advocate for a higher salary? I mean, we've had plenty of conversations of just how to document a project that you're leading. And, you've provided templates, and not you personally, but Black in HR has provided templates to make me excel and help me excel in these spaces. And I can't stress enough of the desire to learn and want to be coachable. Those are traits of a leader. Those are traits of success. It's routine. And so just having someone that you meet and can talk to on a regular basis is just training your mind, is training you for success. We don't think of that. We think of, if I get this title, then everything will fall in line. And it's just not true. It's not universally true for everyone, especially African-American men. We have to have that coaching. We have to have that guidance. And I commend Black in HR and the entire coaching staff for stepping up and having tough conversations around things, and even telling, the mentees and being transparent with them that, hey, you need this skill set. And we're going to sit here and we're going to sit in this moment until we help you refine this skill set so that you can get and achieve your ultimate goal of climbing the ladder in whatever perspective space you're in. So I've submitted myself to be coached within Black in HR and outside of Black in HR, and I will continue to do that probably until I'm no longer wanting to be in this space. And it's an enjoyable experience. I love to learn. I think coaching is just fundamentally should be embedded in your personal and professional life.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? Because people think of coaching as just resume writing, interview prep, negotiation, which is obviously things that Black and HR coaches do. I mean, just the fact that you have access to executives and senior leaders at Microsoft, at United Airlines, at Meta, at the NBA, like all these amazing, exceptional people within the Black and HR community and that's the executive coaching staff, just being able to reach out and, to someone who is highly visible, right? Yeah. Where you would never run into them any day of your life, right? You would never get an opportunity to do that, but you can hire this person at a reasonable cost compared to going to grad school, right? And I think that that's a big advantage to what we do, to what the community does. And I think it's great that you yourself, after all the things you've accomplished, you still find value in coaching. Yeah. It's not enough. No one knows everything. And I think we all can have someone that can pour into us, but also who has a vested interest in seeing us be successful, right? Yeah. Now, I want to make sure we kind of bring this home, because one of the things that we talk about a lot is how Black men are portrayed in the media, right? Our ethnic image. And the media itself has been very instrumental in destroying our image over the last 50 years. And I'm not saying some Black men weren't part of that, did not help in that, but what we know of the data says that this is what we hear about brothers and what we hear about Black men is not always accurate. CNN actually did an article. They were talking about how since 1960, Black men's in poverty has decreased. So basically from 41% to 18%, right? The poverty rate amongst Black men. But it also states that Black men who are in the middle or upper class has grown from 38% in 1960 to 57%. So basically nearly 60% of Black men are either in the middle or upper class. And these aren't the stories that we commonly hear. We don't necessarily get an opportunity to see this up front. But I think it's important that we say these statistics and we are very clear on, while there may be a narrative there, the data doesn't support it, right? And I think metrics is a very powerful tool because, again, numbers don't lie. It is what it is, right? Yeah. So when you think about Black media and how YouTube is giving Black men an opportunity to really create their own podcasts, to really share their experiences, to teach other Black men things that they may not have learned, they may not know, how do you think that this will impact the Black male image within the next 20 to 30 years?
When I hear those numbers, I think of access and I think exposure. And I think that's something I want to highlight first is that Black in HR is doing a great job of providing access and exposure for Black men. To answer the question about media and how that will impact people like my son, who's 15, I think that it's going to be a positive thing when they're able to see and visibly see things to dispel what they're hearing. Maybe it's from the classroom that they're in, or maybe it's from, the social media outlets that they're hearing. But in real life, they can see those things being dispelled. It creates I think a bridge to success. When I'm hearing things about my son coming to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I saw Richard Lewis on your bookcase," which is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, and he did great things. I think he's one of the first Black billionaire men, and he's seeing things like, "Hey, we don't talk about this in school. Why don't we talk about this in school?" And I'm like, "Son, it's access and exposure. You have a father, and you have men in my circle who are committed to shining a light on things that we've done in the past and things that we're doing in the present." So I think if we continue down that path of providing access and exposure to the next generation, I think we're setting ourselves up for a better future. The media is going to be the media, right? It's clickbait. It's things that are going to get quick shares, but they're not thinking about the detriment that it's doing to the next generation, because they may see themselves as whatever is portrayed in the media, and they may gravitate to that because they think that that attention is good. But I think as men who are dispelling this currently and presently, day to day, we have to take the time and shine a light on that. And I know that that can be uncomfortable for us because we might want to be behind the scenes, but it's kind of our payback to what we've put in the work over the years. It's our payback to the next generation. We have to do that work. We have to show up and see how we can change the future for the next generation. And that's just speaking out in things like this, in Clubhouse, going into the school system and saying, "Hey, you can get that Maybach a different way. You can join a Cox or a Netflix or a Meta and be a professional businessman and achieve those same things." And I think visual representation of those things are very important. So I used to when I go into the schools and mentor, I used to dress down, in suits and maybe something that looked very basic. And they were like, "Oh, this guy is kind of boring." But now I go in there and, Jordan 1s, I might have a chain on, I might pull up in my car freshly cleaned. And so they're thinking like, you can get that from being in like a corporate America space, and that grabs their attention. And then you give them the substance. You show them the access, you show them the exposure, right? I keep coming back to those two words. If we provide that, I think everything will continue to fall in place.
You said something that I want to end this conversation with, right? You talked about the men in your circle. And, within Black in HR, we have the wolf pack, right? Yeah. These are the brothers in Black in HR. We share knowledge with each other. We have side events with just the men. Even in Vegas, when we were at the SHRM conference, we had a private dinner. We had a cocktail reception. And I'm curious about your personal wolf pack, right? Like, how did you pick them out? What are the different traits of the men in that particular group? And what would you recommend to other Black men in choosing their own wolf pack?
I look for likeness. I look for people who are like me. And when I say that, I don't mean, they dress the same way as me or they think the same way as me. They have the same goal. That's what I look for in my likeness. They have a goal to want to be better than they were the day before, the month before, the year before. They have goals that is going to make them uncomfortable. They put themselves consistently in situations to expand themselves. We're reading. So instead of just sharing music, we're reading books. We're saying, "Hey, what did you get from this book? I recommend this book because it put me in a mindset to do this." I look for those characteristics in my circle. And I'll say this, and I noticed that maybe a month or so ago that my circle is getting smaller. And I remember looking myself in the mirror and saying, "Why is that? Why is it getting smaller instead of expanding?" And it's really just because I've learned that when you get in different rooms, not everyone can be in that room. It does not mean that my circle is necessarily getting smarter, or smaller. It's because that room has this circle in it. And when I'm going into another room, I have a circle for that room. So it's not necessarily that it's getting smaller. I'm in this particular space in this particular time. And I had to teach myself that because I started to get a little depressed about it. But now, moving forward, I'm okay. But whenever I think about my circle and how I want it to grow and how I want it to be something that can help not only myself, but the next generation, it's got to be very intentional. The men that are in my circle are great men. I can't say enough about them. Iron sharpens iron, right? We got all the cliche words in there, but it's a circle of transparency. It's a circle of vulnerability. And we're all there to help each other. There's no judgment in my circle. And I'm very protective of it because it's ultimately led to my success that I've seen in my career and in my personal life. We have to have that in order to just grow. And it's organic. I love it. I'm looking forward to what it looks like 10 years, 20 years from now, and who's in it, and maybe where we're vacationing, right? We need to do something baller on a yacht one day.
I'm with you on that, man. Make sure you save me a seat on your yacht, bro.
I got you.
Thank you for joining us today, Alan.
Thank you for having me.